What is unethical as duck, but is extremely common practice in the business world. Paying invoices late, especially big companies that pay a few months late. It kills small business and seems to be quite normal here in the UK. My father did some work on a solicitor's building and they didn't pay. My mother noticed after a month they hadn't paid and went up to have a word. The receptionist said that's fine, I'll get it sorted and we'll post the check to you. My mother said I live across the road, I can see my house from here, I'll just take the check. The receptionist said I'll need to get the owner to write the check. My mother said I can wait. The receptionist went back to work. My mother waited. The receptionist did nothing further to get the check and was talking to clients in the waiting area. My mother confronted her and said it's cool, she can just go through to the back room and talk to the owner. The receptionist called the owner in. Whole bunch of arguments and bloody haggling for time in front of the clients. My father got paid. Signing people up for sheet as add-ons to an existing bill and hoping they don't notice the extra charges. Oh god, I used to work in retail and this was something my boss and managers always insisted that we do. I was a cashier and I was explicitly instructed to have a sticker or a keychain or some other low-cost item on hand so I could add on that item to the customer's items without the customer noticing. The intent was to artificially increase the average items per sale, which boosted our store sales stats relative to the other branches in the area. A lot of customers didn't notice, and if they did, we were instructed to be all oops, sorry, I thought that item was yours, let me remove it from your bill. I hated it. That was just the tip of the iceberg with them. They also made us sign up customers for a bullshit rewards program without their knowledge or consent by getting their phone numbers or email addresses. If anyone ordered online from our store, we automatically grabbed their information and added them to our rewards program database to, again, artificially increase our stats. It was slimy as hell, and after a while I refused to do it. Best job I ever quit. Edit, this is getting some traction, so I'll answer some commenters. Many of you want me to name this company outright, but I can do one better. I have a hunch that my old company wasn't the only company that did this, so I urge you all to have the same caution, no matter what store you go into. Black Friday and the holiday rush is the perfect time for this fraud to happen. Here is some advice that applies to any large retailer you visit over the holidays. Always check your receipt. Make sure there aren't any extra or missing items on it, no matter how many things you bought. Plus, sometimes honest mistakes do happen at the cash register. Better yet, take pictures of your receipt with your phone. Be cautious about giving employees your information. Sometimes it's used for marketing and advertising purposes, sometimes it's used for rewards programs, and sometimes it's used for a store credit card application. You can always ask why if an employee wants your phone number or email address, and you can always decline. Doing a legal sheet to make $20 million then getting caught and paying a $5 million fine. No auto cancel on recurring payments. Companies could very easily add the feature, but won't, hoping you forget and pay them more. Letting an employee go asing them out instead of addressing a situation they brought up. Refusing to pay overtime for overtime. I saw it happen all the time. I didn't complain. I got promoted a bunch. It's shady to give dedicated, long-term employees a measly 2-3% annual raise, if any at all, while hiring less experienced people for the same, or higher, salary than the experienced employee. It essentially punishes loyal employees. Consistently making salaried exempt employees work 10+ hours overtime a week in order to avoid hiring more staff. Congress is immune to insider trading. Rocketing the price of stuff and putting a sale. Sadly, people are stupid enough to fall for this. I forget which store it was, but they would hike prices and have constant sales. They then decided that wasn't worth the effort and money in advertising the sales and just marked everything down to the sale price and called it a day. Their sales actually tanked until they went back to the old system. People refused to buy the same merch at the same price unless they were explicitly told they were getting a deal on it, even when the regular price was absurdly overpriced to start with. In Australia, Subway claimed footlong was a trademark name and not a suggestion of sizing, after many people pointed out their subs were well under a foot long. Using a previous salary against you. Oh, you make $40,000? Well, we'll offer you $50,000. That's a 25% increase in pay. Your salary shouldn't be relative. It should be what the market value of the position is. If a job pays $75,000, don't pay me only $50,000 because I only currently make $40,000. Never tell employers your previous salary. If they insist on asking, lie. I do not believe this is even ethically wrong. If they intended to pay you competitively, they wouldn't need to ask. The only purpose in asking is to lowball you. Never tell a prospective employer your salary or even a salary range for any reason. Never give them a number that you aren't comfortable making, because that number will be your new salary if it is below their expected range. Some folks will disagree, but I think you're right. Your employment isn't a favor that they're doing you. It's a negotiation. Services for money. Imagine going to a car dealership and instead of a sign posted, they started off by asking how much money you make in a year so that they can adjust their price based on that. It shouldn't matter. That has nothing to do with how valuable they think that car is. The company you're applying to should already know the market value of a position. Your specific salary can only really be used against you. So if they are trying to gain information to be used in an unethical way, which is the only reason to ask previous salary, you have no obligation to be honest with them in return. They even say it at the end of most applications. If you're found to be lying on your application, you will be denied the position or fired from the job. That's your punishment. Worst case, you don't get the job. Working when you are sick. I have heard stories of bosses forcing people to come in despite being extremely ill. Also, I just wish that it would be mandatory schedule length of at least 2 weeks. If the hours are not the same every day, mine changes weekly and it's hard to plan anything. Making you pay more for printing your own damn tickets at home. StubHub, Ticketmaster, etc. Hire young people who are prepared and motivated and enjoy the work. Give them 50 hours a week of work, no special overtime pay. Tell them it'll be back to normal at the end of the month when the regular crunch is over. Repeat until near a deadline. Give them 80 hours a week, 7 days a week of crunch to meet the deadline. Continue past deadline a little, while then return to regular hours of 50 hours. Repeat until your employees hate life. Refuse to give references when they quit to protect yourself legally. Normalize across the industry so nobody can complain too much and sound credible. Using your employment as leverage to keep your mouth shut. For example, a temp agency I worked through tried to deduct the cost of PPE from my paycheck. I told them that legally, employers need to provide PPE to their employees, not sell it to them. They threatened to fire me. I reported them to OSHA. They got fined and had to reimburse everyone their $15 deduction for PPE. Temp agencies are ducking scams. Edit. PPE, personal protective equipment, hard hat, safety glasses, gloves, steel-tipped boots, etc. Edit. I listed steel toe boots as an example of PPE, but employers aren't necessarily required to provide steel-tipped shoes. Most employers will reimburse the cost of them, though, for regular employees. Not so much for temps. The sort of things that need to be supplied would be protective headwear, eyewear, gloves, etc. Not too sure about ear protection, but my employer supplies earplugs. Also, to the few thinking he did this over $15, what a cheapskate. I didn't do it for the money. I did it because they were taking advantage of people who didn't know any better. A menial amount to you? Probably. But when I applied to this agency, I was broke as duck and $15 was more than my hourly wage. Not cool. A company having a business model that relies on charging fees for breaking its own rules without justification for them. Looking at Credit One. Has a late payment fee, but refuses to add any kind of auto payment. In 2017. Takes 5 days to clear a normal payment. Pay 4 days before your bill is due? That's a late payment fee. Want your payment to clear earlier to avoid that fee? Pay an express payment fee. It's the same fee amount. Lordy, what a coincidence. Fake promotions. There's a role you can apply for that doesn't have any extra pay or benefits, in which you do the same work as a role above that, which is higher paid, in the hopes that eventually you'll be the next in line to actually be given that next position. Except you won't. Whenever you accept a job with the well for 6 months you'll be doing the lesser job, but after that it's gonna shift into the better job with extra pay spiel. Keep applying for jobs during that 6 months and line up other options. When you get the inevitable well things aren't progressing as we hoped, but if you stay in the lesser job another 6 months then there'll be a real possibility. Just say yes. Things aren't progressing as we hoped, here's my letter of resignation. Bye. Apostrophe. Using unpaid intern as worker. They have the exact same tasks as everyone else. They work the same hours, even more because they think that if they work more they will be noticed and hired. They won't, and it's rare that their supervisor take the time to teach them anything. They have to figure out things by themselves. Of course most struggle, and it's used as an excuse to not hire them. Careful, deceptive wording. Up to 100 Mbps internet speeds means you get 5-6 Mbps, and up to 100 for a moment here and there, made with 100% chicken simply means that real chicken was utilized as an ingredient at some point. It's like saying a bottle of wine is made with 100% organic cork. Sugar-free means less sugar per serving than the minimum we have to report the top rated, usually followed by the specific study that ranked it best. Did you know you can pay a company to perform a study for you that's guaranteed to determine you're the best? Government contracting. Building a thing to specs, but not entirely up to full functionality. Knowing the issues that will arise, doing nothing about it, and then make the government cut a whole different and very profitable contract to fix said problems. Comcast's pricing strategy, where they raise the price an absurd amount from one month to the next and just hope customers aren't paying attention or too passive to complain. Called Comcast Friday to try and lower my bill. I told them I don't want the phone, any of the premium channels other than HBO, give me regular internet instead of blast, and I don't need the DVR. They come back with packages that are $20 to $50 more than what I'm currently paying. Let me get this straight. I drop STARZ, Showtime, Cinemax, phone line, go to a slower internet package, and give up the DVR box and I pay more. How does this make sense? Car salesman. Almost no other product has someone who makes money selling you a product you already want. That the price for the product is negotiable. Some people can haggle a few thousand off the price, while little old ladies get taken for as much as possible. And that there are laws requiring you to buy them through dealers instead of direct from the manufacturer, if you know what you want. Giving a set amount of PTO, then refusing to let employees actually use it, or shaming them for doing so. When I got legally married, we'd had our ceremony before the paperwork part. I was working at a factory. The day before we went to the courthouse my immediate supervisor was fired. I was not allowed to take my PTO to go to the SS offices and have my name changed. Not allowed as in, if I took the time off, even just leaving work 2 hours early to make it to the SS office, I would be fired. No one was allowed to take sick days, PTO or vacation, even if it was already scheduled for over a month. The waiting period between signing your marriage license and allowing for name change was 30 days. While it hasn't been an issue with my last name not changing, I wanted to at least hyphenate 10 years ago, and I'm still pissed. Yeah, I could go change it now, at the cost of almost $200. Public school teacher here. My school has started to deduct vacation seek hours if teachers forget to swipe in. We're basically there all the time anyways, and don't get paid overtime, so clocking in is pretty easy to forget. What ends up happening is teachers get their accumulated vacation hours deducted while actively teaching, all because of a forgotten swipe. The admin and district people didn't seem to see how absolutely unethical this practice is, and I never got back 4 days of vacay hours from missed swipes. Literally anything a corporation does that they can be fined for is taken into account as a business expense. If it's cheaper to pay an illegal dumping fine than it is to change the way they process waste, nothing will be done to stop the illegal dumping. People give no ducks about your luggage or parcel. They get dropped, thrown around every day behind the closed door, especially heavy items. Getting a lot more common in my industry is hiring interns all the time. After their few months of training they get replaced by next batch. With the shortage of jobs and need for experience, many people fresh out of college will happily work for free to gain experience. Okay, so this is becoming really common in my neck of the woods. Basically a company needs someone to fill a role. Instead of giving them a job and all the perks like paid holidays etc, they instead hire you as a contractor. This means you still have to play by their rules as to when they want you in, but you get none of the perks besides your wage. No sick days, no holidays, nothing. Edit. I wrote this while at work as a quick comment and didn't expect it to gain any traction, but since it did I need to make something clear. I should have been clearer as there's a lot of confusion over this. I'm not referring to high paying jobs, where a lot of the time being a contractor is the way to go. This system has been implemented over here for retail service jobs. You end up making less since you get paid the same as permanent workers, but you are entitled to no bonuses, paid holiday or sick days. When you're working a minimal wage job this is nasty. I used to work for an unnamed university that made this big deal about how they were gonna pay $15 an hour by a certain year, well before the city minimum wage was going to reach that high cost of living. Patting themselves on the back. Then there was the fine print. It was only for people hired to work 32 hours a week. So what they'd do was hire people to work one shift a semester, then schedule them to work 15 to 38 hours a week. Non-students could work more than 20. I was a non-student, but because the contract was only for 3 hours a semester. Also they didn't even pay the city's minimum wage for the first year I worked there. $2 under. And when it finally did go up they didn't pay me the same rate as the students, who got the minimum wage raise. The 3 non-student workers had to fight for 2 months to get the same pay. And the same thing happened the next year. I finally just quit.